So there's Big Oliver. Hey, Big Ol, what you doing? He is kind of camera shy, but his brother's not. There's Addison. He's got his shoe to play with. He loves playing with his shoes. So today, I'm going to catch you guys up on the progress on the frame that I'm working on. In addition, we'll be doing a tutorial on 8-strand square braid, which is number 3001 in Ashley's Book of Knots. And in addition, finally, last but not least, a kind of a biography, if you will, of Charlie Bell and show off some of his remarkable frames. I hope you enjoy it. So this is the effort to get this piece of Sennit straight, completely straight. So here is what I got so far. We have 13-strand French, 10-strand, I don't know what it's called, but it's alternating 3 and 2, 10-strand Sennit, and then I've got 8-strand square braid in that little notch. Then two sections of 11-strand odd irregular and 14-strand sword mat. So that's what it's gonna be. There it is, so far, base layer of Sennit. Lots more to do. Here are some star knots that are going to be a feature on this frame. All right, folks, let's tie some 8-strand square braid. I'm tying this in number 60 from Nautical USA. It's 3.7 millimeter line, 8 strands. This is number 3001 in Ashley's Book of Knots. So, you got 4 in your right, 4 in your left. I'm starting on my left. I'm going to take one line and go around the back and split the 2 in my right hand and back around. Then, same thing from the right. I'm going to go around the back and split the 2 on the left. Back into the same hand. After you get a couple of passes done, I'll show you something that I do to keep it snug. So once again, from the left, around the back, split these 2, back around to the front. Now I think I can do it. So I'm gonna hold these 3 and pinch them good, poke this around behind the back, between these 2 and back up to the front. Then everything stays snug as you go along. And once again here, hold these 3, pinch them, hook this around the back, between these 2, around to the front, and it cinches up nicely. I'm not using this particular, I'm just using this for a tutorial. I'm not using this particular size on this frame, but it's a lot easier to do a tutorial that's possible to be properly viewed, I think, for instructional purposes if you use a line that's a little bit larger. But I'm tying this for the frame. I've tied a bunch in number 21, which is fairly small. But it forms up pretty quickly into a square shape. The cross section is square. If you tie this around a core, you can then roll it on a table between a table and a book and get it round, turn it into a round braid very easily. But it's a very cool looking. I'm going to use it on its diagonal edge so that you see the diagonal edge on this, this edge in between the seams of a couple of Sennits that I have on this frame. But I like this. It has a much cleaner look to me than the 4-strand round braid. because it's really the same pattern essentially. You're using 8 instead of 4, and it really turns square if you don't have a core to it with any size line. So there it is. I will speed this up. So here's the piece I just tied. 8 strand square. It's square. And I cut it off square so that you can see that it is actually a square cross section. There it is, man. Is that focusing? Anyway, there it is. So I'd like to introduce you to Charlie Bell. Charlie and I have talked a couple of times over the past month or so, and what I'm going to do is read a couple of excerpts from an article written by Pat Spearing about Charlie. When Charlie was 10 years old, his father transferred from Long Beach, California. After he finished high school, Charlie started an apprenticeship in the shipyards there. He spent over 41 years working in the shipyards, the first 35 in woodworking. By the end of his career, Charlie was supervising 440 people in a variety of jobs, including sandblasting and operation of dry docks. It was only after he retired that Charlie started tying knots and making frames. During 1997, the LA Times newspaper showed a photo of people working on the brig Pilgrim. The wooden deck had needed recaulking. Charlie Bell had retired only a few years prior and obtained a fine set of caulking tools from a Norwegian shipbuilder who was in his 80s. Charlie decided to help out and become part of the Pilgrim's volunteer crew. It was on the Pilgrim that Charlie learned to tie knots. There was a requirement to know 8 knots to be able to sail on her. At one point, Charlie made 10 wooden buckets, and he needed a stopper knot for the ropes. Someone taught him the Matthew Walker knot. He had to tie it several times, and Charlie states that that's when knots really took hold in his mind. Charlie didn't seriously take up knotting until he was well into his 60s. Along that same time, Charlie visited the Maritime Museum in Santa Barbara, where he saw his first Sennit frame. And he took a bunch of pictures of it and decided to make one for himself. So the very first frame that you see in this series, actually I'm going to show it to you right now again, is a picture of himself in a frame that was a copy of that frame that he first saw. So in our conversations, Charlie made the statement that he's a frame forger. He's never made an original one, just copied ones that he really liked. But he is a forger extraordinaire. Make sure to check the link in the description for Nautical USA and use the discount code TREVETTEUSA at checkout for a 10% discount. See you next time.